than this show. But they're all basically the same idea. It's like we all are sort of working in an office in Toronto. There's about 8 of us. And if somebody just has an idea that we think is interesting, we just sort of figure out how we could turn that into a story. And whether it's an episode of the show or it's a movie, it always starts with a little idea. And normally the idea is, what's interesting about it is that it's impossible to do.
Yeah.
And that's important. It's important that the pitch for it is something that if you pitched it to any sensible person, they would be like, yeah, okay, so you'll never do that, but that's a fine idea. I really like that. And actually, it's a very Fantastic Fest kind of thing. I noticed that when people talk about movies before they're made here, like at the market or whatever, normally, like the way you go in is you pitch something that each one has never been seen before and is so insane, you can't believe that you will one day get to see this. And we take that philosophy as like a production method. Because then we can, yeah, we get to sort of figure out how to do something that is
But so much of it is you come up with these ideas and then you go try to realize that idea in the real world. Like you go out and just manifest the idea, or manifest the scene in an actual space. And could you just shed some light on some of the sort of most challenging sequences to pull off in the film in that regard?
In what we just watched?
Yeah, what we just watched.
Yeah, I mean, that Santa Claus parade thing was really hard to do because...
And that was an actual police officer?
Yeah, that was all real. What you're watching is completely, totally real. The only thing that is fake, obviously, is Jay and I, but everything else is really happening. And that was hard just because we didn't know what was going to happen. Very hard, like weird things that were hard. It was hard to drive that float up that street because people were parked on both sides of the street, so it took forever. Like, it was hard to know what to say to that police officer that would get the scene to keep going but not have him go, am I in a TV show? Which would ruin everything. Or be like, you're under arrest. And so that's really nerve-wracking to do. But it's not like we're, I wasn't like strapped with dynamite. You know what I mean? Like, it's not so insane that I couldn't explain our way out of it. And then the stuff...
I mean, Sundance seems like, how was that complicated?
That was complicated because of how much work it was.
Yeah.
Because we were shooting every single day while our film was there, and we were shooting tons of stuff that we never would wind up using. But it wasn't hard in that we weren't like breaking a lot of rules or sneaking into places. The hardest stuff was that stuff that we shot with the projectionist, where I'm telling him to switch the film, and that was shot back in Toronto.
Yeah.
Like, that's when it's hard, when you're trying to get somebody to participate. And
that projectionist had no idea he was being filmed.
No, well, most of the people who are in the show don't know they're being filmed. I think it's pretty obvious when they know versus when they don't know. But yeah, that was a challenge, but it was more of like a conceptual challenge because it was like, what can this character do in the real world without letting people know that he's a joke? But because nobody knows who I am, especially reporters and stuff, they take me at face value. So if I say I'm a buffoon, I snuck my film into the festival, you've been to those junkets before. They don't give a fuck what you say. They don't even listen to you. They haven't seen your movie, and so if you say, yeah, I snuck into the festival, I'm in a band called Nirvana, the band, they're like, great. Okay, so what would be the inspiration for the movie? And you're like, all right, wicked. I guess you're going to be in our TV show, you moron.
Did I hear that you were on a panel and a filmmaker actually was like frustrated?
Was pissed. I was on a filmmakers panel of 4 people, and it was like we were talking about how to make independent stuff, but I was in character, and they asked us to tell the story of Sundance, and I said, yeah, well, I just got here today, I shot a movie last night, I snuck in, and the festival went crazy, and the filmmaker who she was the director of Equity. And which is a film that is in theaters, I think it either is or just was. And she was so pissed. She was like, wait a minute, what do you mean? And the moderator kept moving on because I guess he thought I didn't want to engage with this craziness. But she kept being like, hold on. What do you mean you snuck the film into the festival? And I was like, yeah, I don't know what to tell you. This place is a shit show. They just put my film in the festival and now I'm a star. And she just kept trying to get I guess a real answer, but because I was being sincere, in my character, she was just like, it's so hard to penetrate that when you want to be the sincere person in the room. Very tough to get at the characters from Nirvana the band because they think that they're, always right, I guess.
And speaking of character, I love one of the things I think is so great about your series is that the cameramen are characters too, and there's that alchemy and interplay that happens between you and Jay and Jared and Andy. Can you talk about that relationship and how that has evolved?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, we've from the Dirties until now, we've done this same process of talking with the cameras as though they're real people. Actually, I shouldn't say from the Dirties, from Nirvana. This used to be a web series back in 2006 when we were all quite young, just out of film school.
Where can people find that web series?
You can't find it.
anymore?
No, the web series was taken down by Vice. Not in a bad way. I think good. It was to not create market confusion. But there are a few DVDs of our original series floating around. I think people have rented. Some people here have one. I'm sure you have one of our old DVDs. Yeah. But I think, I don't know how it evolved, but definitely we lean on the ability to turn to a camera and say, what do you think about this idea in Nirvana the band? Because I think the idea is that those are rational filmmakers who can't believe what they've discovered. That's sort of it's a bit like the Chris Smith American movie. Like, that's kind of who they're playing. And they don't want to fuck with what they found, basically. So it's a good interplay, because we'll ask them, do you think this is going to work? And they just won't say anything. They'll be like, I don't know, maybe. Like, you can tell that they don't want to. It's not so evident in the episodes you saw, but that is very much a running theme, that the cameras are involved. They're breaking into places with us. Like, if we need them to help us accomplish something in the real world, they'll do it. But for the most part, they don't want to disturb the the ecosystem. What's that? The Prime Directive? Like, they don't want to. They don't want to fuck with the culture that they've discovered.
Do we have questions from the audience? Right at the back.
Yeah, I noticed there seemed to be a lot of, on the music, there seemed to be a lot of what would probably be copyrighted material. I mean, other than the Daredevil theme and the Entourage theme, I think I even recognized like a Chrono Trigger song.
Wow, good for you.
So I'm just wondering, when this goes to distribution, I mean, how are you going to get away with this?
See, didn't I warn you? Were you here when this started?
It's done. It's
I
taken
said
care
it's
of.
done. Yeah, this will be on TV as is in like a month.
You just you have good lawyers, right?
Yeah, we through making our last film, Operation Avalanche, we learned a ton about fair use and what you can and can't do with copyrighted material, whether it's posters, video, music, anything. And I guess because we're coming from the independent film world, people in television just don't have that background. They just don't know that really scrappy legal stuff that you can do to get the rights to do stuff. And because that's literally our lives when we're making movies, we were like, oh yeah, we'll do this in television, because it's just it's not that it's easy. You need like the best lawyers in America to do it, but it is possible. Now, I will say we do pay a ton of money in music licenses, like a ton. I would say that is our biggest line item on the episodes, like on each episode's budget. So we spend a lot of money, but the examples you brought up were all fair use arguments. All the John Williams music that you see in that Home Alone episode, we didn't have to pay for. But again, I mean, I'm not a lawyer, but it is a give and take relationship.
I noticed, I had seen a version of the Star Wars montage before, and you didn't have music over it. Was that part of like you're blending it so that it becomes more of a satirical like idea, or?
No, that sequence. No, we had no
There's no
fair use worries at all in that. I think you probably saw it without music because that was before Jay put the piano score in it.
Okay. But
But you know what? I'm not super. This as though this will be on television, but I'm still changing a lot of stuff. These are rough. These are rough edits.
Have you ever
of these
had an
episodes.
idea that one of those funny impossible ideas that you went out and tried to get and you just weren't able to get it?
Not in the big sense. In like the day-to-day sense, where it's like, oh, let's go shoot. Let's go. In the pilot, there's something where we get cigarettes from somebody on the street, and we haven't quite gotten that shot yet. Like, we haven't been able to we gone out and shoot it 3 or 4 times at the Woodbine Center. Anybody from and we haven't quite got it yet, but that's where it'll screw up. In the big picture, normally if we think something is really going to be impossible, we just won't do it. Now, I would say Matt Miller, our producer, says no, this won't work.
And you listen.
Yeah, I've learned that we get away with enough crazy stuff. I'm not lacking, insane things to be able to shoot where it's like they say you can't.
Right over there.
Between this Operation Avalanche and Dirties, what was your biggest sneak that you were like, oh shit, this could go horribly wrong? Or this
NASA, definitely. When we sunk into NASA by far. Only because it was like we were like fish in a barrel. Like we were in like a mile inside their Galveston campus, and if they had been like, wait a minute, you're using us and you're making a movie with faking the moon landing, you're under arrest. Like, we couldn't have run. Like, we're in their buildings. And like that I think that was the highest risk. But then in terms of just straight danger, on that same movie, we also broke into a studio in London that was like, was probably more illegal, but that wasn't as, I don't think the stakes were as high there as they were at NASA.
Any other? One more question. Someone has one more. We only have time for one more. If there is no more questions, I'm just gonna ask Matt. Like, can you tell anyone about sort of adventures that Matt and Jay, or when will people be able to see their further adventures?
Yeah, well, the show releases at the end of January. You'll get it here on Viceland, or if you live in Canada, it'll be on Viceland and City TV. You know, all these lines play so much better in Toronto.
That Pierce handling bit.
I know. Yeah, well, a couple of people, but that's not going to be in the actual show. That Pierce handling impression. Did you have a question there in the front?
I do have a quick question.
Okay.
Yeah, sure, go.
Well, I like, by the way, we're from Toronto, so
Great.
I love the Toronto references there. But what if there's plans for a season 2 already?
Oh, this is like a real dream story in terms of making a TV show. Our boss is Spike Jonze at Vice, and we showed him one episode, and they were like, "We'll take as many of these as you will make." So they bought season 2, and they just bought season 3.
Wow.
We'll be making it for a long time, like at least a year. And I gotta say, like, this show, this is not to plug our network, but like, it is unreal what they're letting us do with this show. Like Vice, if there are any young filmmakers in this audience, try to pitch that company something, because the amount of freedom, I mean, you saw what we're doing. Like, we're basically making a show that we want to make, and they are fighting for us to do this stuff that any other distributor or network would be like, there's no way you're doing that. Like, they want us to do this stuff, and they're constantly encouraging us to go further. And again, I don't want to be a shill, but it really is like the best. For me, this is the best stuff I'll ever do, or at least the best stuff I've done in my career so far. And I can't imagine what it would be like to get better than this. So anyway, I gotta say before we go, this was the best screening we've ever had of this. I love screening things at this festival, and I love you guys. I hope I get to screen things here for the rest of my life. It's wicked, because everybody here gets these stupid references. It's the best. I love it. I didn't realize we were making a Fantastic Fest show when we were shooting it in Toronto, and thank God that Tim put it in the festival. Anyway, thanks again. Goodbye.